My name is Gina Covarrubias. I am an engineering life coach. The name of my business is Deliberate Doing. As an engineering life coach, plain and simple, what I do is I teach engineers how to defeat career despair. And that despair can come in many different forms. It could simply be, I kind of like what I'm doing now, but I really don't know what's next. It could be, I don't like who I work for. I don't like my boss, and I'm not sure what to do next. Career despair could look like I've been job hopping and I want to just find one place and stay there, but I don't know how to do it. Or it could be in the form of, I really hate where I am and I don't want to do this anymore. So I help engineers and other STEM professionals defeat these kinds of problems. So I'm very happy that you could join me tonight. And once again, I will reiterate, please put any questions or comments in the chat and we can address those at the end. Here is our outline for today. 5 workplace lessons to elevate your career. I'm going to address happiness in the workplace. I'm going to talk about self-autonomy, what that means and why it's important. And we have to address behaviors in the workplace, right? That's a really big source of drama, I think, in the workplace. And then we'll talk about career path and dream job. So let's go ahead and get started with lesson 1, happiness in the workplace. So we're going to take a step back and we're going to talk about what employment actually is. Employment is a mutually beneficial agreement between you and another party. So each of you agrees to exchange a value. Each side has responsibilities to fulfill. And really what it is, it's a partnership. You help out the employer and they help you. You give them results and in return, in exchange, they give you compensation based on their own criteria. Employment is not supposed to be a dictatorship or a friendship. Now, it's perfectly fine to go to work and make friends at work. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. But what I do want to caution you to think about, especially for those of you who are students or who are younger in your careers, don't think of your employer as your friend. Okay, it's a partnership. Both sides are supposed to benefit. As an employee, especially for those of you who are younger in your career, you are responsible for communicating your own limits and your boundaries. Most likely, your employer, your boss is not going to turn around one day and say, am I giving you too much work? Do you have too much on your plate? What can I take away from you? Now, they might. That probably has happened before to some people. But I want you to pursue your job with the attitude of, if they're going to try to push me around, if they're going to try to give me too much, I have to let them know. I have to be able to say no. Now, the workplace can be a wonderful world of reward. It can offer you intellect and growth and development and mentorship. And there are all sorts of wonderful things that can happen in the workplace. However, it is also fair game for things that aren't so wonderful, such as conflict, such as frustration and being uncomfortable, such as being disappointed, and change. How many people do you know don't like change or don't take change very well? What I want you to understand is that this doesn't mean, if some of these negative things happen, that doesn't mean things have gone wrong at work. That doesn't automatically mean you have to get up and leave and find a new job or transfer to another department. What I want you to understand is that it might be tempting to blame your employer for some of these things. It might be tempting to blame yourself. I know I found myself in that position a few times throughout my career. It might be tempting to contemplate a new job or to leave the industry or to do a very meticulous and vigilant job search. Have you ever looked at job descriptions and read them word for word and analyzed every single thing that it said, looking for the one phrase or the one word where you would say, nope, that's not for me. I'm not doing that again. So changing your job is not always the best solution Adapting to your circumstances is a much better long-term solution. And the takeaway here about happiness at work is that changing jobs doesn't solve your workplace problems because you're taking the same brain and the same mentality with you, unless you choose to work on yourself. So it's kind of like this picture here where you could be running on that hamster wheel and trying one job after the next, working with several different people, only to discover the same problems keep coming up and you don't really know how to solve them. So I want you to be aware of that. Lesson number 1 about job happiness. It's really not your job's job to make you happy. It's not your job's job to keep you happy. It's not your job's job to create happiness in your life. Your job's job is to provide you with direction and work. In exchange, you get compensated. And I like this quote here at the bottom by Stephen Covey. I am not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions. If any of you have heard of him, he wrote the very famous book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That takes us to lesson 2. We're going to talk about self-autonomy now. What I want you to know about being autonomous is, first of all, your job identity is what you do. It's about what you do. A job is external to you. It's outside of you. And jobs are transactional. So you have tasks, you complete duties, you produce results. And what I want you to think of your job as is a tool. I want you to think of your job as a tool that you're going to use in life, a temporary tool. Jobs are fluid. We know that. Jobs are very unpredictable. We know that. Jobs are operational. And they're kind of like a teacher. They're there to teach you certain things. So this is important when it comes to thinking of your self-identity. Your self-identity is who you are. That's internal. That is not external like a job. You as a human being are thought-based. You are not production-based. You are a spiritual and vulnerable being. You are authentic and you are unique. You have a lot of unique characteristics that only you can bring to the world. You are 100% worthy because you're human. And you have a certain intrinsic value that a job doesn't have. So again, think of your job as a temporary tool, and you as a human are a permanent being. So an autonomous mindset will allow you the ability to separate yourself, the human, from the job, which is external. And that's really important, again, especially for those of you who are students or who are younger in your careers. It can be very easy and tempting to identify yourself with your job, and you don't want to put yourself in that position. Now, an autonomous mindset promotes this idea of being vulnerable and being authentic. And what I want to offer you on this slide here is that your internal brain offers you autonomy, and autonomy is power. That's why it's a wonderful thing to be autonomous. That's why it's a wonderful thing to not be dependent on that boss or on that particular employer. And when you realize you don't have to do every single thing they say or complete every single request or demand, however they may make it, it's a very powerful place to be. And I like this picture here because all of us have hidden treasures beneath the surface. We've got the surface level stuff, okay? So we're smart technically, that's fine and dandy. We've got other skills on the surface, that's great. But what I want you to think about is what is lurking underneath, perhaps that you don't even know about yet. What kind of treasures and gems and gifts are hiding beneath the surface that you have not tapped into yet? What I want you to understand is if you can allow yourself to be vulnerable and authentic, then that will open you up to be able to find these hidden treasures that are deep inside of you. So self-autonomy is about not relying on your employer, but instead relying on yourself, relying on your brain. Your brain is the most powerful and creative tool you will ever own. Lesson 2, what I want you to take away from this is that you are not your job. And I have a great quote here from a TEDx talk that I found. The struggle for authenticity is rooted in fear of rejection, which kind of leads us into lesson 3. Lesson 3 is about behaviors in the workplace. How do you behave in the workplace? And why do other people behave the way they do in the workplace? This is a fun topic. What I want you to try to understand is that just like this movie projector here, people project their insecurities onto other people. So if you could imagine this projector, this picture that you're looking at, and I know it's a little old school, so sorry for those of you younger folks, but if you can imagine this movie projector as your colleague or your boss, and imagine you as the movie screen that it's projecting onto, what I want you to understand is every time people interact with you, whether it's positive or negative, they are projecting themselves onto you. So in the negative sense, sometimes people will, for example, blame. They might get defensive. They might try to sabotage other people at work. They might have negative motives when they interact with you. And so if you could think in terms of, instead of taking it personally, think of it as this person is projecting the way they feel onto me. And I want you to know that it goes both ways. If you are interacting with somebody and you're coming from a negative space, or you find yourself maybe blaming or wishing harm on somebody, that would be a good time to ask yourself, what's going on with me? How is it this person is bringing out my insecurities? What does that mean for me? I have a great link here to this wonderful Brene Brown video clip. She is a researcher, and it's about 3 or 4 minutes long. And she talks about, in this YouTube clip, she talks about why your critics don't matter. So what other people think about you really depends on themselves. It depends on their own personal experiences. It depends on their own opinions about everything. It depends on their own self-worth. And what others think of you really depends on the lens through which they see their own world. And the takeaway from this slide is that people's opinions about you really are not about you. So again, don't take things so personally if somebody has a negative comment about you or to you. Perhaps you could sit back, take a step back, and ask yourself, I wonder what's going on with them. I wonder why they are acting this way toward me. And realize that it's probably most likely not about you. So I have to address self-confidence. When it comes to behaviors in the workplace, self-confidence is a biggie. And what I've listed here at the top, I wrote out my favorite definition of self-confidence, and you'll find many different definitions out there. I like to think of self-confidence as the willingness to feel any emotion. Very plain and simple, not easy to do. But I listed here a few ways that you could potentially gain more self-confidence for yourself, because it's a mindset after all. So you're capable of increasing your self-confidence. Doing uncomfortable things. Okay, getting used to being in a state of discomfort. That could help raise your self-confidence. Pursue an activity that sets you up for failure. It might sound counterintuitive, but if you get comfortable with the idea of failing, that is huge, because failing leads to success. Be interested in other people instead of trying to be so interesting. If you're talking to somebody, if you're in if you're at a networking event and you don't really know what to say, if you're shy or embarrassed or whatever, just try asking people about themselves, because many people enjoy talking about themselves. And then the next bullet, think of, how can I help? How can I serve this situation? What is it I can contribute? So pursue an activity from a service attitude. That could help you with your self-confidence. And then the last one, replace judgment with curiosity. So instead of telling yourself, my colleague should have done this better, or I'm tired of dealing with these customers, or whatever it is you tell yourself about other people, try being curious instead of judgmental. And that could help you raise your self-confidence. And the takeaway here in bold at the bottom, you have to be willing to disappoint other people if you want to start pleasing yourself. Too often, we are so worried about pleasing other people, and we might become people pleasers. And that means we have to lie to ourselves, and that means we don't please ourselves first. So what I would like you to think about is, how can you please yourself first? And I really love this picture. It's very appropriate. You were born to be real, not to be perfect. So lesson 3, when it comes to behaviors in the workplace, what I want you to know is that it's really not up to you if somebody likes you. That's not your decision. It's not your call. It's completely up to them and their experiences in life. And I love this quote here at the bottom. You can be the juiciest peach in the world. There's always somebody who doesn't like peaches. And guess what? That's okay. If people don't like who you are, if you show up authentically and you show your originality and your uniqueness and people don't like it, it's okay. That's okay. Lesson 4 is about career path. So I get a lot of questions from people about career path. What am I supposed to be doing? What is my right career path? I want to choose the best one. The first thing I have to say about career path is please stop asking yourself, what is my right career path? It's very easy to do. And there are probably many people around you that you know who are asking the same question. So number 1, stop asking yourself this question. And the reason is because it's a terrible question to ask yourself. It's very self-limiting. It assumes that there's one right and several wrong answers to that question. And it puts the pressure on you to have to choose the right one. You better make the right decision. That's what we've been told all of our lives, right? And it leads to analysis paralysis. How many of you have ever overanalyzed and thought and gathered more information to help you make a decision, only to find yourselves stuck and unable to make a decision? And it could leave you feeling hypervigilant or maybe even a little bit paranoid, as if the world's going to crumble around you if you make the wrong choice. So what I'd like to offer you instead is ask yourself open-minded questions that don't focus on right versus wrong. And what I've listed here on the next slide are a few examples of some questions you could think about for yourself when it comes to your career path. What is the price you're paying by remaining stagnant? How valuable is a decision that leads to a discovery that you don't like? What is the worst thing about uncertainty? If you never try something, how would you know whether or not it's right for you? How would you know whether or not you like it? And at the bottom, when you think of your future self a couple years down the road, maybe 5, 10 years later, are you going to regret not trying something? And then the last question, how does the decision you make align with your values? And that one could be difficult for you to answer if you don't know what your values are. So that could be a good brain exercise for you in the audience. What are your values? Do you even know? The last thing I want to say about career path is I want to remind you the reason we go to work. What is the purpose of work? Why are you working in the first place? I want you to understand that work is a constant journey. It's not a destination. It's a journey of service, development, and legacy. Service in the sense of contributing toward a bigger cause, a greater cause, something bigger than you. So having a service attitude could mean, how can I contribute? How can I improve whatever's going on. How can I help this person? How can I help the organization succeed? Number two, it's about development. How can you grow yourself? How can you overcome challenges at work, whether they're technical or personal? How can you overcome challenges and grow yourself and evolve your brain and get you ready for the next phase of life? Number three, work purpose is about leaving a legacy. It's about leaving everything in a better condition than you found it. And that could simply mean a conversation you had with a person. It could mean your whole job and your job title, leaving it better than where you found it. It means leaving your employer in a better spot than you found it. And on my website, I actually have a whole talk dedicated to career purpose and the reason we work. And what I want you to understand is if you are pursuing destinations such as money or titles or retirement, those are probably the three most common that I hear. If that's your focus of work, if those are your goals, then you're missing the profound reason of work. Work is about service, development, and legacy. So I want you to keep that in mind as you think about your career path. Lesson 4, decisions themselves aren't right or wrong. It's all about your reaction. It's all about what are you doing with those decisions. So I love this quote here. It's not the decision as much as your follow through. This brings us to our last lesson tonight. It's about dream jobs. How many of us have pursued a dream job? How many people do you know are looking for their dream jobs and they just can't seem to find it? So imagine going on an online dating site and seeing these advertisements. Now, I don't know if they actually do this or not. I have never done the online dating thing. But imagine you go to a dating site and they promise you find the right fit. Or they say, find the spouse that fits your life. Or find your dream spouse. Find your perfect partner match. How misleading and how unrealistic does this sound to you? Okay, I can say for me, as a person who has never been married, I know better than to believe there's a right fit and that there's a right one or there's a perfect one. Now, personally, I know better than that. So to me, that would seem really silly if I saw that. But what I want to say is welcome to the world of online job searching. On monster.com, they claim find the right fit. Glassdoor, find the job that fits your life. Engineeringjobs.com, find your dream job. Dice.com, find your perfect job match. They make it sound so easy and lovely. And I had to put a picture of the LinkedIn logo here because in the past, I know on LinkedIn, I have seen an advertisement for find your dream job. And it's very laughable to me because you can go through and check all the boxes in life. Okay, I've listed a couple here. You can get the degrees, you can get the experience, the internships, you can have a killer resume, a great network, you can have stellar referrals. You can go through and check all these boxes. That does not translate to a dream job. And again, this is a hard lesson that I had to learn later on in life, and I wish it was something I knew when I was younger. What I want you to know is that when people strive for externals, something outside of them, like a job, to create happiness inside, they're doing it backwards. It really needs to be the other way around. So happiness really is a prerequisite for finding that amazing external. And when it comes to finding jobs, especially dream jobs, it's not like they're out there waiting for you to just find them. What needs to happen is you need to work on your core. You need to look inside first, make yourself happy, and then you can go out there and create this wonderful dream job. That's the way it works. So in bold here at the bottom, what I've written is you attract what you are, not what you want. So if in general you find that you're an unstable person or a very unhappy person who can't make decisions, um, you're going to bring that with you to whatever job it is that you find. So it's really important because that confirms what I'm trying to teach you here is that happiness comes first and then the dream job. It's not the other way around, which is how most people try to do it. So to end on this slide, if you want great, you have to be great. If you want a great job out there, it starts with you being great. If you want a great spouse out there, it starts with you being great. Lesson 5, you make of your job what you make of yourself. Now, most of you in the audience, hopefully all of you have heard of Quincy Jones. He is a world-renowned musician, composer, songwriter, Grammy winner. He is a music mogul. And I love this quote by him that I heard in a Netflix documentary. He said, "Love, trust, and respect. Your music can never be more or less than you are as a human being." That's the bottom line. So you work on being a good human being first, even before a good musician. Clearly, you can replace the word musician with engineer, with customer service person, with accountant, whatever it is that you do. He got it right. He's an old dude. He's been around for a while. Very, very, very successful and famous. And it took him a while to figure it out. So love that quote. Had to share it with you. And here we are. Here are the 5 lessons that I taught you tonight. Once again, this was a lot of information. I'm not saying that these lessons are easy to implement, but what I am saying is that if you can integrate these into your job, into your career, you're going to elevate it and you're going to be that much farther ahead than other people around you with the same amount of experience. So if you need help, or if you want to talk to me a little bit more about any one of these lessons or all of them, if you want more details, then by all means, just send me a note and we'll set up a chat. With that, I would love to say thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your taking the time tonight to listen to what I'm saying. And what I want to offer you is that on my website, I have videos, I have a career blog, I have an events page. If you want to engage with me more or understand more about what I do, please visit my website. I do offer free coaching to anybody who is interested. You don't even have to be a working professional. I have a monthly newsletter that you could sign up for. That's another way to engage with some of my material. And I also offer a course that teaches life skills and people skills, specifically to engineers and STEM professionals. It's called Overcoming Career Constraints. And basically, this is material that you didn't learn in college. It's about how to navigate people and your life.